this is a growth industry for them. This is about pandemic profiteering, not about improving your health. Anyone who's ever looked at VAERS or VSafe or any of the stories online from people who've been jabbed, these products are designed to create customers for the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial complex out of people who were previously healthy.
Since 2020, the World Health Organization has aimed to strengthen its global health mandate, but it has increasingly prioritized pharmaceutical profits over actual health outcomes. This has sparked concerns like those raised in the Bell Review currently underway by public health expert and former WHO scientist and medical doctor David Bell, who argues that health policies affecting national sovereignty should remain with individual nations, not in the hands of unelected global organizations influenced by corporate interests. Despite this, the WHO has pushed through legally binding amendments to international health regulations called the IHR and is seeking to implement a one-size-fits-all pandemic agreement, allowing the Director General to unilaterally impose public health measures during what are so-called public health emergencies of international concern at his sole discretion. Independent researcher James Roguski joins me to discuss the implications of these developments, particularly the role of Big Pharma and the potential impact on the people affected by these policies. Have a listen.
These negotiations are about money and about building out the infrastructure to make jabs around the world, because they have not spoken one word negatively about what was done over the last 4 to 5 years. So whether or not Donald Trump and the United States exit the WHO, that doesn't affect Canada. Whether or not the US government exits the international health regulations is open to question. In his executive order, there was not language about, we're going to reject the amendments that were adopted back on June 1st, 2024, which they have until July to do, and every nation also can reject them outright. It also didn't say anything about leaving the international health regulations. That's a separate agreement from 1969. And it said something about ongoing negotiations for the amendments to the regulations, of which there are no such negotiations. So it exhibited a lack of awareness of what's going on. And then in an interview, Trump said something about, maybe if we get a better deal, we'll re-enter the WHO. Now, you got to scratch your head and wonder, what is really going on here?
Roguski and I moved to discuss a Zoom call recording that involves Canada's lead negotiator for the pandemic agreement, who is an unaccountable, unelected public health bureaucrat named Zoe Kahn.
I will start by introducing myself to those of you that I haven't had the pleasure to meet or who haven't seen me before. And I am Zoe Kahn. And I am leading the negotiations for the pandemic agreement. I am joined by members of my team here. And we just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of give a brief update about where we are, where we think we're going. So we've got a short deck that we'll go through, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Kahn confirms that member states have not been able to finalize the text of the agreement, but are hoping to do so ahead of the annual meeting of the World Health Assembly called the WHA. That's the decision-making body of the WHO, which converges at the end of May each year. She confirms that the agreement is ultimately about equitable access to medical countermeasures, i.e. pharmaceutical products like vaccines.
That we're all committed to increasing equitable access to medical countermeasures, but there's often different views on the best ways to achieve this, and that's kind of where we're at. If we're going to get to the finish line, and I really hope that we do, but I don't think it's a sure thing at this quite yet, there's going to need to be, everyone's going to have to give a little, and we'll see how that goes in upcoming negotiations.
Kahn outlines ongoing issues including intellectual property and technology transfer, conditions on public funding, transparency, accountability, and protecting confidential business information, and of course, pathogen access and benefit sharing.
The discussion with Zoe Kahn points to the fact that as far as the WHO is concerned, they're having negotiations in February and April, and she mentioned that they might have another round, added to that if they need it. They use a term called greening. And what that means is any text that they kind of sort of have agreed to, they then highlight it in the documents in green. So I'm going to roughly say well over 2/3 of the negotiations have all been greened, meaning the nations agree to it, but they have not let anyone see the updated documents since May of 2024. So it's almost impossible to say, well, wait a minute, we agree with this or we don't agree with it. They are secretly negotiating a corrupt business deal. And whether or not the United States is part of the WHO, please hear me, people. All of the corporations will be able to participate in the pathogen access and benefit sharing system, even if the United States leaves. And so what is actually going on in these negotiations is invisible to the vast majority of humanity. These people are putting together a business deal to go looking for pathogens using the PCR process, which is just used for fear-mongering, so that they can scare people, and all of the companies around the world that can manufacture testing equipment or drugs or more mRNA injectables, see, the holy grail of just, money flowing in their direction. The United States has, in another emergency, I should say executive order, for the control of the National Security Council, Biden started an office of pandemic preparedness and response. And so all of this is not under the control of the Department of Health and Human Services. It's in the National Security Council because this is biological warfare. This is not about your...
I want to bring you an uncensored version of this report. So if you'd like to see it in full, head on over to Rumble, where you can watch this in its entirety without the censorious YouTube community standards meddling in the way. Head on over to Rumble and I'll see you there.